Tonight we're talking about bullying. We're talking about how we can battle bullying and some of the effects that it can cause, some of the effects it can have on young adolescents as well as adults. And joining me now is communications coordinator at CAIR, which is a Council on American Islamic Relations, Ojaala Ahmad. Ojaala manages communications and media relations for CAIR in Los Angeles. She engages with news outlets to generate dynamic coverage of Islam and Muslims. During her undergraduate career, Ojaala founded and served as host of Talk Progress, a one-hour talk show program at K Beach Global Radio. For 3 years, she covered a range of topics on the show. In addition, she served as the spokesperson for Students for Quality Education, which is a statewide campaign promoting educational justice within the California State University system. She's also written on civic engagement among American Muslims, free speech on college campuses, and college affordability for the Orange County Register and the Daily 49er. Ojaala, welcome to Radio Islam. Thank you so much for joining me today on the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Saima.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. And Ojaala, it's nice to see that you have some radio show experience. So this shouldn't be new to you at all.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited to be on a show. So thanks so much for inviting me. It's kind of nostalgic and bringing back some memories. So.
Oh, well, that's good. I'm glad that we were able to connect with you. And as I mentioned, today's show is kind of a somber topic. It's about battling bullying. And with my first guest, Dr. Sarah Sayed, she's a psychologist, and I talked to her a little bit about, some of the mental, physical, and emotional effects that bullying can have on someone who gets bullied, as well as the person who is the bully. And I towards the end of, my segment with her, I was kind of shifting gears and bringing it in to tie it in with Islamophobia. And she did, as a psychologist at Khalil Center, which is a center here in Chicago, she did say that, since Islamophobia has been on the rise within the past couple months, she has unfortunately seen a rise in the number of people coming in who are reporting being bullied, Muslim people. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to start off by asking you, what has CAIR seen in terms of Islamophobic acts, and do you believe these acts of Islamophobia translate into bullying, or are they two separate things?
Unfortunately, we have seen an increase in religious-based bullying. In fact, CAIR just published a unique report, which is CAIR California's statewide school bullying report, and it discusses the impact of school bullying and discrimination on California Muslim students in particular. It's a very unique in the sense that there isn't a report that's published like this. What we've done is surveyed more than 600 students between the ages of 11 and 18, and there was a very detailed breakdown in terms of race, even whether or not they are a boy or girl, and we found some very interesting and very shocking results, including that California Muslim students were twice as much bullied than the rate of the national average. And
oh, wow. What do you think attributes to that? Do you think that you guys just have the numbers, or do you think that there is something or some type of difference in the community or the society that is attributing to students in California being bullied twice as much?
Honestly, it's not something that we could identify. I'm not entirely sure if it is the numbers or what the factors could be involved, but it is interesting to note that it was religious-based bullying. We also found in the report that the most common type of bullying American Muslim students were facing were verbal at 52%. It was interesting to note that more male students had reported experiencing bullying than female students.
Oh.
Although, it's very interesting. Although the female respondents who wear a hijab or the Islamic headscarf, out of those, 27% had reported being discriminated by a teacher or an administrator.
Wow. And I was able to kind of take a glimpse at the report. through one of the press releases, I believe it was. But it's ridiculous. And one of the things that I did want to ask you was, when bullying occurs, we know that it can happen amongst, younger children, adolescents, and it can carry over into adulthood as well. But when you're younger and you're facing bullying, one of the things that you expect is, you can reach out to your adults around you, whether they be your parents, whether they be administrators in school, such as teachers or principals, or leaders within, your community. And there's a sense of, a solace that younger kids and adolescents can take in knowing that they can reach out to an adult, if they're being bullied. But when people feel as if they're being bullied by their own teachers, I wonder how that must feel. And, as a representative of CAIR, what do you think are some ways that students can help to either combat that or to deal with something like that?
Yes, unfortunately, it is very, it is very troubling that there are adults, there are teachers, administrators who are in positions of authority and power, and they're the ones who are really affecting the students and the way they feel about themselves, about their interactions with their colleagues, with other students. Obviously, it does affect their potential and just the way they feel about themselves in the classrooms. In the report itself, we have given a number of recommendations to all the stakeholders who are involved in this. That includes the parents, that includes the teachers, administrators, that includes our local and state legislators who can help bring about more inclusive local and state policies that help prevent school bullying. What we're doing as per our efforts as CAIR is that some of our attorneys, people in our civil rights departments, are going out, reaching out to these schools, school districts, and offering or discussing the findings that we've gotten in this report based off of the surveys we got from the respondents, and also offering to give sensitivity or trainings to help educate schools and administrators and the stakeholders involved in, all the people who are involved in the process to help better the environment for all students and to be more inclusive, to be, offering an environment that is safe and welcoming for all students. So those are some of the efforts that we're doing, offering recommendations. There's also a statewide bill that we were just lobbying at our Muslim Day at the Capitol recently this past April, and one of the bills was also regarding combating school-based bullying. I don't have that off the top of my head, but I can certainly look it up and give you the details on it. But basically we are making, we're trying to not leave any stone left unturned. So we're talking to the teachers, administrators, reaching out to school districts, offering the information and the findings that we've gotten, offering trainings, and, also being in touch with our legislators so they can also incorporate and introduce new bills or counter bills that are existing that are Islamophobic or harming students of the Muslim faith.
Wow, that's great. So you guys are really working on like a state level to get some legislation that will really help to end, the discrimination or the Islamophobia that's taking place. So welcome back to the program. And for tonight's show, we are talking about bullying. We're focusing on the effects that bullying can really have on young people as well as adults and how we can combat it. And now we're here with communications coordinator at CAIR, which is the Council on American Islamic Relations, Ojaala Ahmad. Welcome back, Ojaala. Thank you so much for joining me once again.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. And before the break, you were talking a little bit about the different initiatives that Ojaala is really taking to help implement some type of policy or legislation that will help to decrease the bullying and the rising acts of Islamophobia. And in terms of your efforts, have you seen any response on a state level or from any organizations?
So particularly in my role, so regarding the bullying report that we were talking about is mainly spearheaded by our Civil Rights Department. So our attorneys who work statewide, we have about 4 offices. We have 4 offices in the state of California, and so these findings are based off of the offices combined. And so as I was mentioning earlier before we went on the break, some of the efforts we've been doing is reaching out to schools, school districts, talking to school principals, superintendents, counselors, everyone that's in the area that we cover, from about the LA County area, Orange County, Riverside, San Bernardino, Ventura. This serves about 300 to 500 Muslim Americans in our area, and so we distributed about 380 of these school bullying reports to them to kind of offer the feedback that we got from the respondents who had filled out the surveys, and just to kind of start the discussion with them and to offer our resources and help. With my role in media particularly, what I had done is reach out to local and national media outlets. And this is not in case of the bullying report to kind of talk about our findings, but also more recently with the the case of the student who had been smeared as ISIS in her high school yearbook.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm talking about Bayan Zahlif. For those who may not know, this was a student who was a senior and is about to graduate from Los Osos High School, and in her high school yearbook, her name, instead of her actual name, Bayan Zahlif, was published as Isis Phillips.
I know, that's just ridiculous. I couldn't believe that when I read it.
Yeah, it was very shocking and very, very upsetting, very hurtful, and I can only imagine what Bayan herself, as a young 17-year-old, and her family would be going through, experiencing, the deep concern, the concern of her daughter's safety, and just the type of humiliation that I can only imagine would have resulted from such a situation to have happened. So my role was to reach out to media outlets, and we prepared Bayan. She spoke very eloquently and diligently about her situation and how she was affected by this entire thing, by this entire incident. And currently we're looking into it. Our its department is in contact with the school, and so we're calling for a thorough investigation to figure out what exactly happened and how such a mistake, such a big mistake could occur. As a high school student, you're just looking forward to graduating, and you're excited to see your yearbook and go to graduation, and it's just so sad for something so big to kind of happen on the last week of, in her last year before graduation.
I know.
So these types of incidents, have a very real effect on the students, on their family, on their psychological well-being in terms of how they are perceived by others. It's tough enough being a young student as it is. It's tough enough being a teenager, just growing up and, being on this journey of self-discovery and trying to figure out who you are and who you want to be. And there is absolutely no need to have an added struggle of trying to hold on to your religious identity or, be open about it in your school environment and in the classroom without being receiving more pushback from it. So it was just very upsetting. This Bayan was actually showing us a video of how students were pulling down posters that said, "I stand with Bayan." So it's not just been like a one incident thing. It's kind of like an ongoing pushback of some of the hate that students are facing. And it's interesting, Saima. I was just reading an article recently from one of the based off of the press conference we had held, and the headline or the title of the article was "Goodbye Clock Kid, Hello Yearbook Girl."
Oh my God.
And that's in reference to
Ahmad.
Muhammad, Ahmad Muhammad, who had built a clock and was very excited to show the class and his school about his amazing work. And subhanAllah, instead of being praised, he was reprimanded for it, and was obviously treated mistreated, I should say, above and beyond what any young 10 or 11-year-old would have to face, considering that the police was called, he was handcuffed. So incidents like these, obviously, we're seeing a rise in them on a statewide and, across the country. And so our work at CAIR is very important now, I feel, more than ever before, especially with the anti-Muslim rhetoric that we've been hearing from presidential candidates. And
Right.
we definitely do feel that this type of rhetoric is contributing to the anti-Muslim sentiment for students and for Muslims at large in the American population. And it's definitely a reason why our work is becoming more important and why we need to continue our efforts in educating people about what Islam is and who Muslims are, and just making sure that Muslims are getting their voice out there, and they're not being keeping it under the rug, when they are experiencing bullying, when they are experiencing discrimination, that they're reporting it. They're reporting it to their local CAIR offices and, to their local law enforcement, and, just being vigilant and making sure that these types of things are recorded, because if it goes unheard, no one is going to know that this is how students are being treated in the classroom. This is how, or women who wear the hijab are not feeling safe going out at night. Like, no one is going to know unless you report it. So we are really pushing our efforts and letting people know that, hey, if you're a student and you were called a terrorist by your fellow classmates, or a raghead or a towelhead, that is an act of discrimination. That is verbal discrimination that should be reported. It's unfortunate because a lot of students nowadays just feel like this is the norm. Like, oh, okay, I'm Muslim. That's what it's like to be Muslim.
Right.
And that is the mindset that we absolutely do not want our students, young ones, or anyone for that matter, to be in. We don't want them to become compliant. We don't want them to feel like this is acceptable or okay, because it is not. So really with our efforts is to reach out to them, and we're doing that in a number of ways. We have staff from our civil rights department who are giving trainings, workshops, explaining to students how to identify what is discrimination, what is, noteworthy to report, and, just have a open conversation with their teachers, with their parents about how they're feeling, and, anytime that they're discriminated, that they should report that right away.
Right. And that's really important, because without people reporting, it doesn't get out there, and it's really important for other people to know what's going on, and as an effort to really educate everyone and for everyone to become aware. And Ojaala, one of the things that I wanted to ask you is, as communications coordinator, you work a lot in media relations, and you manage the communications aspect of CAIR. Mm-hmm. And have you seen a difference in terms of, when certain things happen, whether it was Bayan, the way that, they wrote her name in the yearbook as Isis Phillips, or Ahmad Muhammad with the clock, and then, and a number of other incidents that have happened. Have you seen a difference in the way that they're reported, or in the way that they're portrayed in media when it comes to, certain outlets, as opposed to, how, like, CAIR, you guys would report something?
So just so I understand better, you're saying, has there been an improved trend in reporting?
Yeah, either an improved trend, or do you see any difference in reporting when it comes to how, like, you would report a certain incident that's happened, and how maybe any other news outlet or certain other news outlets might report it?
Right. So I would say that the local media we have worked with and national have been very supportive of our work, and they have been very, very, very open, very considering when it comes to reporting. Each of them were very, sharing the sentiments of Bayan and just feeling very bad for her. A lot of the reporters that we were working with were parents of children her age or younger, and related to the bullying situation she was going through as parents. And, that I think it really reflected in the way they covered it. So I personally was pleased to see that they were, really there to help contribute in CAIR's work and CAIR's mission by amplifying our voice out to the general public. Actually most recently, not directly related to bullying per se, but just the overall, combating anti-Muslim sentiment. When the Charlie Hebdo attacks had happened in January, there was a reporter who had personally called me up before doing an actual report and wanted to talk off air, off record, before we went on, and just kind of called to get some background and understanding of why it was offensive to have the drawing of the Prophet, peace be upon him, which I thought was a very very thoughtful and a very good practice of a media outlet, a very nice gesture.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and of course the other outlets did the same, but she took a little more time. She was an editor from the newsroom and took a little more time to kind of understand, not simply for reporting purposes, but to understand the religion of Islam and understand the faith better as to why it is so offensive and hurtful to have the drawings of the Prophet or any prophet being done in such a way. I mean, of course, the Charlie Hebdo cover was very vulgar and very upsetting to begin with, but why any drawing was upsetting. And so the fact that she took time to understand that, we do this because in our faith we don't want to, lead to idol worshiping, and that's why we stay away from drawings or any type of, figurative drawing of a figure. Mm-hmm. She kind of took notes and put that in her notes and said, okay, for future, if we're doing a report on Islam and Muslims and this type of situation comes up, we'll know to reference our conversation from today that this is why it's offensive. And she said that, we're not going to air the image, even though that's what the news report is about, is the Charlie Hebdo cover, but out of respect for your community, we'll just do a report on the incident without actually airing the picture, which I thought was a very nice gesture, that she was going above and beyond that. So in my time here, I have seen that these types of relationships that I've built with reporters and journalists have definitely helped for not just better reporting on Islam and Muslims, but overall better understanding of our faith as well. So I definitely see that their role has been very supportive in helping us amplify our voice, whether it's the civil rights cases that our attorneys are working on, whether it's the youth programs that our youth department is working on, whether it's government, whether it's policies that we're trying to incorporate that are more inclusive. Whatever it is that I'm sending to local reporters and journalists, they have been, for the most part, very supportive in helping amplifying our voice and helping promote a more accurate image of Islam and Muslims.
And that's great, because I feel like whatever the people know and whatever the people see is through the media. So it's really important that there is an accurate representation, an accurate portrayal of what is going on. So of course, that we do have, like CAIR, we have these Muslim outlets that will show what has happened, but it's also important to have really good relations with news outlets that are primarily non-Muslim, just because even though the news is unbiased, there's always a certain type of a spin on it. So it's important to have an accurate representation of everything going out there, even for people to just become more aware, even for, like you said, your relationships with all these journalists and reporters has just been so positive, and from there it can only get better. So I think that's inshallah. Inshallah.
I mean, there's definitely work to be done. I would say that we've reached at the absolute best yet. There still is work to be done. There is still there are still reports that, like you said, like the headlines might be a little misleading or just more sensational. But I realize that is part of how media does practice. But it's an ongoing effort, and it's definitely a journey that I'd like to continue with my development of relationships with them and helping them report on Muslims. So,
well, that's great. And Ojaala, we just have about a minute or two, but before we wrap up, before we go, for people who are, maybe experiencing some type of bullying, or they may be experiencing any type of discriminatory acts towards them, how can they report this? Where can they go? What are some resources they can utilize to report this and get help?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say you should definitely get in touch with your local CAIR office. So for yourselves, the closest one would be CAIR Chicago. For us, it's CAIR-LA. We have about 23 chapters across the states. So, reach out to your local CAIR office, call their civil rights department and reach out to them. And, it's very, very important to report that. So please don't hesitate if you feel that you have been discriminated against. You are not alone. This is what CAIR is here for. So please do feel just be vigilant and report that, and also report it to your local law enforcement. So, yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Ojaala. Thank you so much for sharing everything that you've shared with us today, and I really appreciate you taking the time to join me on Radio Islam today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Simon. I really appreciate you inviting me. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully we hope to have you on the program again soon, inshallah.
Absolutely. I'd love to.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much. Take care, Ojaala.
All right. Take care.
Yep. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.